Right. Lanora, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast there. How you doing?
Hey Adam, how are you? Good to
Ye-
be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you back on. And yeah, no, I'm doing well, thank you. And recently, like I've seen you being like very active, like you've been doing lots of like kind of workshops, and you're always posting awesome content. And for this episode, like we mentioned like to talk about like relational fitness because you do like personal training, and you kind of have a big spectrum in the areas that you work. And before we just start, we were saying like your relationships, and how everything's kind of interlinked really, and like and what relational like fitness is.
Yeah, so yes, I do believe that everything is kind of interwoven a little bit, right? And so when you think about relational fitness, it's really talking about your fitness from a relationship standpoint. Fitness is my thing. Fitness is my background. Fitness is my lifesaver. So when I think about relational fitness, I think about being strong in the background in your relationships. A lot of relationships aren't healthy these days, and a lot of times people do things that are not healthy in relationships because they are not healthy and they are not healed, and a lot of times that stems from childhood traumas. And if you don't take care of those childhood traumas, then a lot of times, and I speak from a female's perspective, but men as well, a lot of times we will just be nursing or caring for that little boy or that little girl in this person, and we're supposed to be in a full adult relationship. So that's what relational fitness is: being fit and strong in your relation in the areas of relationships.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's a really important area and topic. I think, like you said, a lot of people, have everyone's got different relationships with different people, but I think sometimes there are things that kind of going on that people aren't working on, and kind of probably avoiding, or they're not seeing, or they're choosing not to see it. And in your like emotional fitness, physical fitness, in your energy, that has an impact surely, on how you feel. And if someone's working out, do you think they might not want to go to the gym? They might not feel like that they've got the energy because of this. And how kind of fitness goes hand in hand by helping people, to kind of shift that energy. Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely, Adam. You're hitting it on the head. When you talk about emotional fitness and mental fitness, I all of it ties in together. Um, when you think about being in a the relationship, when you think about being in a healthy relationship, you think about healthy emotions. You think about being in a healthy or strong mindset or mind or state of mind, right? And if you're not, it's okay. But being able to communicate that is a proper thing as well. It's something that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to communicate that, and it does. It all ties together. If you're not in a good space, a lot of times, like I said before, working out in itself is difficult. Okay, working out, going to the gym, just getting past that mental struggle of getting up, making it inside the building, right? It's hard, anyways. And if you're dealing with in a toxic relationship where people are not caring and people are not understanding what's going on, or we're not communicating with one another, that makes things a little bit more difficult. If I'm not able to talk to you, and then my feelings are not being understood, and I feel like my emotions are not fit, right? Then, of course, at that point, I'm just downhill from there. Okay. So, relationships, it all ties in, yes, but relationships are very important. I mean, even in work, even at work, right? A lot of times we take some of those same behaviors that we had as children we take that into work because we haven't healed from that. And this is the way that I get a response, by throwing a tantrum or something. And then I do the same thing at work, but it has a different outcome because, now you're dealing with business and people are like, no, you shouldn't act in that manner, right? So yes, it all ties together, and we have to be healthy in these different areas of our lives, or it's going to be difficult for us to kind of be successful.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like in, I suppose in what you do as well, and I think like in business and in general life, a lot of people say, you have to be happy and, the people that you surround yourself with, you kind of become. And I think like people sometimes, like sometimes you see people who stay in certain relationships that aren't good for them. And, sometimes people probably attract certain people, but when you kind of break it down, it kind of goes probably, to their belief systems, um, how they feel about themselves. So then they attract
Absolutely.
probably people, who kind of reinforce that way they think about themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, for a person to stay in a relationship, my coach, she and I talk all the time, and one of the things that she says is, in order for a person to stay in a relationship, and it's toxic or whatever, they have to be getting something from that relationship. And I know for me, I was in a toxic relationship at one point, and for me, I was getting out of that relationship that form of connection that I remember when I explained in the first podcast, is that I felt neglected and abandoned as a child, right? And so in this relationship, I felt like I was receiving that connection, because every time I would feel like I wanted to leave or I didn't want to talk to that person, they would come back to me or they would call me. And I would be like, well, at least they want me. At least they're fighting for me, or whatever the case may be. But that's not that. You have to think about the foundation of what that relationship is built on. And it wasn't healthy. But you have to understand, in relationships, you're getting something out of that relationship, regardless if it's toxic or not. You're receiving something from it.
Yeah, no, I can really relate to that. And I think sometimes, you might think things are going to change, or, waiting for it to change, or people might change temporarily and then kind of go back to their own ways, but they have to change themselves, don't they? And it's not, they, you know, they're not going to change for you. It has to be for them. It has
Absolutely.
to obviously benefit you, but then you can't kind of make them change, if that makes sense. And I think sometimes, from my experience as well, like you can be in relationships sometimes, and your energy is like shot, and you kind of like it's very easy sometimes to probably lose yourself sometimes, I think. And then if I mean, every person's different, every relationship's different, but from my experience, I would like kind of pleasing the other person, and then you lose kind of a sense of yourself, and then time goes by, and then some people, for some people it's more difficult to get out of it because they might have a mortgage or they might have kids, or
Absolutely.
so it's
Absolutely, Adam. You
yeah,
you hit it on the head. I mean, when I was married, I lost myself. I
yeah,
absolutely lost myself in my marriage. I enjoyed being a wife. I thought about having a family, and serving, my husband and my children. And it was just an amazing feeling for me, and so I lost myself. I lost Lanora Wyatt. I became, the wife to this man, and I was his wife. And that was the thing for me. Just, and it wasn't just the title. I want to make sure that that's clear. It was the fact that, the servitude of marriage, the way that it made him feel as a man and everything. But I lost me. I wasn't being cared for in that same manner. How does she feel as a woman? Is she happy? And it's not necessarily about being happy, because you have to understand that every relationship, every day, you're not going to be happy. There are different experiences and things going on in life, work and school and kids and childbirth and, you're losing your parents and things of that nature. I mean, it's different experiences going on in life, and you're not going to always be happy. But are we able to come together? Are we able to communicate with each other or communicate our needs to each other for this particular moment of what's going on right now? So I lost myself and I wasn't able to communicate what it was that I needed at that time because, of course, I've never felt that that was important. And when I say that was important, I mean Lanora, because if you look back at the childhood trauma, I never felt like Lanora was important because she was abandoned, she was rejected, neglected, whatever. So now I have someone that's loving me and that's caring for me enough to ask me to marry him, right? And I want to make sure that we're good. So I'm not going to talk about my problems and my issues and my concerns. That's just not, it's not fair, first of all. And it's not human. Everybody goes through something. Everybody hurts. Everybody laughs. Everybody, there's an array of emotions and everybody goes through something. Building relationships take work. And it starts with you. If you're not a healthy person, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a healthy relationship. Either you're going to ask and require so much more, or you're going to give so much more and you're going to end up empty. And it's difficult for you to give from an empty reservoir. So you have to start with yourself. You have to have a good, healthy, positive relationship with self. So, yeah.
That was deep, isn't it? I really love what you said, and it's so true. And like you mentioned a few things, like you talked about, like childhood trauma and how it kind of goes back to that. It kind of everything probably goes back to that. A lot of people have experienced
Absolutely.
it, and then if some people think, oh well, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, then you kind of, that's what you believe, then you'll go with that. And if you're in a relationship, that might come up, and then you might not probably mention things or talk about things because you might obviously feel you're not worthy enough to look at that, or that even your place in it, isn't it? And
well, Adam, let me spin a caveat on that as well.
Yeah.
Let me spin
Yeah,
something else. Some people may use that too to try to manipulate you and manipulate the situation. Well, I wasn't raised with my mother and my father, and woe is me. And they use that to continue to manipulate you or play games with you or hurt you so that you can feel sorry for them. But in your 30s and 40s and 50s, at what point are you going to say, that I need to be better? I need to get some healing so that I don't continue to hurt this young lady or this young man. At what point are you going to say that? You can't continue to use that. Well, I didn't have, I mean, I could say the same thing. I didn't have my mother and my father either. But I don't go around here just ruining people's lives, So you got to be careful about that as well. Sometimes when you're over communicating that, it could be a little bit something underlining there too.
No, I agree. It's like that kind of bringing your kind of story, isn't it? And then putting like a blueprint on it is like a victim in some sense. Some people do. They'll
exactly.
Oh well, it's X, Y, Z, or I'm not okay because of this, and it's like, well, that's just something that happened. That's not necessarily, what
who
you're
you
saying.
are at this point. Yeah.
And I think, like you said as well, like it all kind of goes back to you, doesn't it? And I'm just thinking of personal experience. Like I remember, if you have everyone has insecurities, I think, or everyone has some things that they have to work for in relationships, but that's kind of life. But sometimes I think we're not always aware of it. And I think for me, I think I used to have certain insecurities around like, fully attaching, and because I've been hurt in the past, so I think I
Mhm.
used to fear actually attaching in new relationships. And then I remember, like, hurting a few people, not physically, but
Right,
emotionally,
right,
because
right.
I wasn't okay in
Because you weren't
myself.
emotionally healthy.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
sinking other people's ships, and then it had to kind of happen back to me for me to realize, oh, so that's how it feels, that's how it looks, that's what it is.
Yeah.
um it is quite a journey, isn't it? I think, people are always figuring out how to do relationship. I mean, I don't think there's a like an instruction manual on it, is to say this is what you need to do all the time.
Correct. I mean, it's not an instruction manual for relationships, but in order to have a healthy, successful relationship, of course, you have to be healthy. And like you
Mm,
said, it all goes back to you, the individual. If you're walking around here and you're being that person that, like you even stated yourself, Adam, like you've heard a couple of people and it had to happen to you for you to be like, oh, wait a minute, that's how I
yeah.
made this person feel, you know. But we don't always have to go through that. A lot of
No.
times when especially if we're empathetic and we can
Mm,
understand, oh man, I can understand how that made him feel, even with your
yeah.
your 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 homeboys or your girlfriends, my
Yeah.
girlfriends, you know oh man, I shouldn't have said that, I can understand how that made her
Mm,
feel, and that's when we call back and we say, hey, I said this, that, and the third, and I apologize. I can understand how that was hurtful, even if they don't call you and say that hurt my feelings.
mm,
You can empathize and you can say, oh, because you put yourself in that person's shoes and you say, well, if somebody said that to me, that would really hurt my feelings or that would upset me, or
yeah.
whatever. But some people it's all about them. And some people do
Mm,
not care what everybody else, anybody else has going on or how anybody
mm,
else feels. And it affects them not only in their everyday life or
mm,
personal life, it affects them in their work life and everything, because everything is tied to relationships. We were not put here to be by ourselves.
mm,
Everybody feeds off of one another. I mean, if you
mm,
think about commerce, you get product, this person buys it, this person gives it as a gift, this person, I mean, everybody is here and we feed off of each other. Everything is energy, right? And
mm,
so if people are walking around here dumping their bad energy on everybody, then it doesn't make the world a good place. You have to get
no.
yourself together. It all starts with you. You have to have strong relationships in order to have, in order for things to be good in life. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody can, anybody can help you. A baby can come and tell you something, you know? So yeah, yeah.
No, definitely, definitely. I think that's so true, and I think, like you said, everything kind of dominoes on top of what onto the
Mhm.
next. And you mentioned like commerce and how businesses work, and how people work, and energy, and it's all goes back to yourself, and you have to be accountable for that, don't you? You have to take responsibility for that. And
Absolutely.
like, it's that kind of relationship that you have with yourself is how have a relationship with other people, isn't it? Like you mentioned work.
Yes.
And if I've sometimes worked with people in the past, and they're like, oh, well, that person's a certain way, or I don't like those kind of people. And it's like a mirror almost, isn't it? You're mirroring your world.
Yes. I had two things about that. So I was in a when I was married, my spiritual mother and father used to say, your mate, your partner is a mirror of you. And a lot of times we get so upset with them, but what they're doing is showing us who we really are. And you're like, what? Like, I don't understand that. Well, when they do this thing right here, that upsets me. Well, would that upset you if you did it? Well, I don't do that. Well, 9 times out of 10, you do, and that's why it's making you so upset, because that's what makes you want to change what you're doing and how you're operating. And then you said something about, the way that you act or feel or whatever. Those are the type of people that you attract. That is absolutely true. When I went through the divorce, I was so dark and I was so sad and I was so angry. And those are the type of people that I would attract. I mean, people that were so sad and so down, and people that were confused or whatever, because I was so confused. I was just like, I don't understand what happened here. I don't understand what's going on. But as you get down in there and you clean that up and you start to, become that Lanora that know you can be, that you once were, the happy Lanora that attracted the amazing husband and that attracted the friends that wanted to be around you and that attracted this amazing career, then things start to change for you. And those type of people and things start to connect towards you. And it's all about energy. And when they were talking about the book, The Secret, you think about The Secret. Well, what is it? What is it? And I ended up running across this video that actually tells you just the baseline of it. It's energy. It's whatever you put out is what you get back in. Whatever you put out is what you call to you. And so it's an amazing thing. And to heal and get everything cleaned up or whatever, and start to see the way that your life is moving and calling things into your experience, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really, really, believe in what you say, and I think it's so true. Like, how the law of attraction works, and like say, you can talk about energy, and like, it's almost like magnets. People are almost like magnets, and what you kind of gravitate towards and what kind of comes into your life, isn't it? Is all kind of goes back to yourself and your mindset, belief system, energy. And I think like relationships are such a big thing, because I think like it might be the difference between you being successful or not, or it might be the difference between taking action and doing something. Like you might be with someone who might say, oh well, I don't think you should do that. And then sometimes, I mean, I remember when I was working in a retail store, and this guy came in and he was looking for clothes, and he was looking at these different t-shirts we sold, and every shirt he liked or looked at, he looked to his wife and she shake her head, each one. And I could see that he wanted it. And I was like, he went through like 4 or 5 shirts and he didn't end up buying anything because he was thinking about what she was thinking. And I was like, that's crazy. I was like, if you want a shirt, buy it. But do you know what I mean? I mean, everyone's different, but that's just like an example.
Think about this, Adam. But think about this. Let me ask you a question. Like a female or something that you're dating, right? You go and you buy a shirt or something like that. You're buying that shirt, yes, for you. You don't want to walk around naked or whatever, right? But you want her to be like, dang, my food look good in that shirt.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that compliment or whatever. And I mean, he could have very well just brought his wife to the mall or whatever with him to buy the things, because those are his, words of affirmation or something like that is his love language. You just never know. And you may mention about something else just a minute ago. When you say, oh, I don't like hanging with those people over there, it's just something about them. Nowadays, they call it vibes, right? Their vibration is just not, it don't fit well with me. Yeah. And that's all of the energy, and that is what it is. And we have to pay attention to that, because if we don't, then it does allow us to make mistakes, and it does allow us to get involved in with people and things that we shouldn't deal with, But yeah, back to your example, that guy, I mean, I like to see a well-dressed guy, nice and groomed and smelling good. And believe it or not, guys love compliments. So,
I see your point there. I see your point. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I think, I do see your point. Because I suppose, like you want your partner to look a certain way, or it's that kind of goes probably back to mirroring, doesn't it? You see couples sometimes who look very similar, or they dress similar.
Right.
I mean, I won't go too deep on this, but do you think it kind of goes back to like, it's not the right word to say, but like caveman times and like kind of tribal, it kind of goes back to kind of tribal kind of ways of how we kind of.
Like, are you talking about to like make sure that people know that you're with this person or with that person, or you're part of this group or that group. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
How we attract
Yeah.
partners and stuff kind of goes back to like, years and years ago.
Yeah, to like your foundational principles and teachings. So
Mm,
yeah, I mean, again, if that's what's in you, that's what's going to come out of you. And
mm.
if that's what's radiating out of you to the world, then that's what you're calling into your experience. And you find those people that say, if they've been together for a long time, they start to look like each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, like all of these different sayings that they have. But I mean, that's why relationships and things like that are so important. And not
Mm,
just for us, because it doesn't just stop with us. When you
yeah.
think about, you may mention about cavemen and tribal times and things like that. Those people, you have to think about it from a legacy perspective.
Mm,
You want good, solid relationship. You want your relationships to be healthy. Being fit in relationships will carry you through your legacy.
mm.
If you and I are married and we have children watching us argue all day, then what is that kid going to do? They're going to go
Yeah.
to one extreme or the other. They're going to either be like us, sitting up here arguing with their partner, fussing and all of that, or they're going to be like, oh, I don't want to do that. Either if we start arguing, I'm done. And that could be
Mm.
an amazing partner. But because they had a disagreement and they don't know how to
Yeah.
handle it because they've seen how we handle things, then they could mess up their lives, right? So we have to not just look out for us, we have to be healthy for us and our legacy as well.
Mm. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I really love that. And I think, like you mentioned, like, children growing up and, the way, your belief system's like formed, like your subconscious mind, isn't it? Like the first, 7 years of your life or something crazy like that. So you
Right, the
think,
first 7 years.
so if you're around that, it's probably very easy to pick up all those traits, automatically, or,
Right.
like there's that one way or the other, isn't it? I mean, as Oprah said, she saw her mom like hanging out the washing and doing something else. Was it a mom or a
Mhm.
grandma? Uh,
I
but
want to, I believe it could have been her grandmother. I'm not sure.
uh,
Yeah.
and she, like, in her mind was like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be doing
Yeah.
whatever. She was. It's really, it's like kids are very intelligent, aren't they? And they see things very, very clear, and
Mhm.
they can, like, teach adults things as well.
Absolutely. That's what I was just saying. We can learn from kids. And I was
Yeah,
speaking to the Apple support consultant
yeah,
earlier today because I was having problems with my phone.
yeah.
I got too much data on there, too much content on. And so we were just kind of talking while she was working through some things or whatever. And we were saying how intelligent children are nowadays, that you
Mm,
have to be mindful of the things that you're saying around them, because like you alluded to, Adam, between the ages of birth to 7, they're like little sponges. You can put a headset on a kid that can't even talk yet, and it's speaking Spanish and stuff, and you don't understand how they're able to speak English and Spanish because they're sponges. They just pull it
yeah.
all in. My godson, he was going to school, a public school with some Hispanic children, and they would talk and they would say different words, and he would pick up on Spanish. They are just sponges, and you really have to be careful about the things that you're doing around them. That's why it's very important to have a
Mm,
healthy sense of self, to have a healthy relationship with self, so you can have a healthy relationship with your partner, so that
mm,
you guys can present a healthy relationship in front of these children, so that we don't keep creating a cycle of
yeah.
trauma and mess and drama and toxicity.
Mm. Yeah, such an important topic, isn't it? And I think you're so right. And I
Yeah.
think, like, this is what we see playing out in society, not just in America, but in the UK, all over the world. And some people sometimes, not all people, but it's very easy for some people to grow up and think, oh, this is it. this is
Yeah,
the way it is. And
yeah,
it's not, it doesn't have to be like that. And you see loads
it's
of
not.
successful, yeah, and you see loads of successful people who've come from hardship and trauma, and they've used that as like motivation and fuel almost.
Right. They did, and they call it get it out the mud, right?
Yeah.
You're already down so far. You're looking up, saying it has to be a way up. I have to be able to get up, And a lot of times you're right, Adam. Some people will look at it and be like, "This is it. This is all all I
Mm,
have, or whatever." But that's why you have to have a strong mindset, and you have to get around good people
mm,
that have a good sense of themselves, a good healthy
yeah.
relationship with themselves. You
Mm,
have to make sure that you intentionally put yourself in, with people that can help you with different things.
mm,
I may not be the one that can sit down and be your counselor, but I
yeah.
may be the one that, and this is something that I do in my fitness program, is talk about mindset. When you come in and you're having a hard day, I've had people cry in sessions before. Well, what's going on? We will still work out because you need to burn that energy, right? But
Mm,
I need to know what's going on. What's making you cry? Why are you so emotional? What's the
mm,
matter? Talk to me. Like, I am a safe place.
yeah.
None of my clients will ever hear anything that they say to me unless they give me the approval, or we're sitting there talking or something like that. Other than that, I don't do that. Like,
No.
because they've given me the opportunity to be in their lives to help them with this. Do you
Mm.
really think that I would go back and smack them in the face with it and hurt them? Not at all. I wouldn't dare. And sometimes you find that that is that one thing that's
Mm,
causing them to hold on to their weight, or that's causing them to lose weight so rapidly. And you fix that thing that's in that mindset, and
mm,
it takes off.
mm,
Mindset is very key, and you have to make sure that you take care of that, because if
mm,
you don't take care of that, it's not taking care of you. You won't have good healthy relationships, and it
mm,
just goes on and on and on. It's a cycle.
mm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's so true, and I think your mindset is so key. And it's like people who are busy, either working or working out, lots of things happening. You have to have that quite robust mindset to to apply yourself and take responsibility and be like, I'm going to do this X, Y, Z, whatever that is. Whether that's
Right.
finish work or post content or work out. Because for me, if I don't do something and I need to, I feel terrible. Like if it's been 3 days down the line and I still need to do X, Y, Z, and then it can be harder sometimes to get up and out of that. And I think that's what
Right.
happens to some people as well. But it's just those shifts, isn't it? And because you're very heavy in like the physical training side of things, um,
Mm.
just as like a random question, do you think like have you seen like people kind of shift in their energy through working out, and that may help with like trauma? Do you think?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, of course, that's my story. That's what helped me.
Mm,
Fitness helped me. When I started to work out, like I said, I was in a dark place. And as I start to work out, because what happens is we release these different endorphins, and it's serotonin, and that's what
mm,
causes you to relax and sleep. And the different, we release these different um I'm losing the track of my
no,
words
no,
right now.
no, neurochemicals and chemicals,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yes, we release these different chemicals in our bodies that will help us throughout life, right? And a lot of times, if we don't release those, then we're stuck in different areas. So
yeah,
yes, like you said, yes, it does help you with the releasing the oxygen, removing the toxins, so the oxygen can move through the body freely,
yeah,
so you can think freely. It's crazy.
mm,
And when we're in class, I say it all the time. And I tell them before we start class, when I say breathe, I'm saying breathe in your nose deeply. And I
mm,
always give them an example, and blow out your mouth slowly. So when I say breathe, I'm like, and let
yeah,
it out slow. I said, what
Yeah.
that does is it slows your heart rate down. It allows things to, get moving. I said, but it also gives oxygen to your muscles and everything as well. So we're sitting here working out and I'm like, breathe, let's go,
Yeah.
because do you believe it or not, some people try to hold their breath through a workout. That just really just tripped me out. Like when I started training, I'm like, people
Yeah.
hold their breath. I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of people like they try to hold their breath, they get dizzy and they don't understand why they're lightheaded and stuff because you're not breathing. You're not
Mm.
giving your muscles oxygen. And you need oxygen to first of all to live and just walk around here, let alone working out. Like,
Yeah.
come on. So yes, when you ask the question, does it all tie together? Yes, all of those things tie together, the endorphins and the all of the, all of the chemical releases that you need in order for the body to function properly. Yes, it all happens during workout as
Mm.
well.
Yeah, it's really true, isn't it? And I think like it's very grounding as well. I think, through your breathing and when you breathe, it's it's grounding you in the moment as well, isn't it? And your body and your muscles, all of your system needs that oxygen. And I think, a lot of it can be quite difficult to because like when you think about your breathing, a lot of people are unconscious of how they're breathing or if they're breathing correctly. And
Mhm.
if you're like when I started running again, I kind of have to teach myself how to properly breathe whilst you're running. It's not always in and out your mouth. It's like, through your nose. But and it's very difficult, but with that repetition you get better at it. But it's so important because it all interlinks, and how you feel. And well, like when you talk about like, talk about relationships, do you think like have you seen it with couples or friends, if they have a friend who works out or trains, then it kind of motivates them with that synergy to then, perhaps work out.
Yes, it does. And a lot of times, especially like this past weekend, Saturday, one of the young ladies that's in my class, she came to the class. She enjoyed it so much. She went and told her sister, her niece, everybody. Like this past Saturday, all of them were in class. And then when they got ready to leave, her sister came up to me and was like, "You know what? I will be back to class, and I'm gonna come just to support my sister. I like this class and everything, but when you have people to support you, it makes it that much better." And the flip side to that, when you have someone that's coming to work out with you and all they're doing is complaining and, oh my God, how long are we gonna be here? How long are you gonna do this? Then it makes them say, you know what? I'm not gonna invite her anymore because that takes a lot of energy to sit there and listen to that negativity. I'm already fighting with myself to do this leg extension. I'm fighting against myself to do this bicep curl. And I'm hearing her in my ear, like, how long are we going to be here? Just go ahead and leave already. So, yes, you're right.
It adds those kind of extra like layers of weight on you, doesn't it, when you're trying to like get doing.
Yes, yes.
No, it's
Good way to put it, Adam.
yeah. It's like it's like lifting on a bench press, isn't it? And then whacking more weight on it, and then like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to push through my things as well. And yeah, something came to mind. We were talking about people who've came through from different situations. Like a big role model of mine, Kevin Hart. And you think about where he's come from and what he's doing now. And a lot of people see where people are at now. They don't see the things that people were going through or the hardship. And he
Right.
was having to go on stage and he came from pretty rough area, didn't he? I mean, I don't know the particular name, but I saw like a documentary where he was talking about it. And
Mhm.
a lot of the people he knows are either like on drugs, dead, or in prison, or whatever. And
Right.
he took his when he talked about it on Joe Rogan on a podcast, and he said he took his kids to where he was from,
Mhm.
and he was like, this is where I'm from. You don't want to kind of be in a
Live
place
this
like
life.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and this is where I'm from. I think that's so important, isn't it?
I
and
think that's why you go from, you go from one extreme to the other. That's why you have to be mindful. And a lot of
mm,
times, Jay-Z said the same thing. Like his kids doesn't need the same tools that he needed when he was
yeah,
coming through, because they're not going to be raised up on the block and selling drugs or running from
yeah,
the gang members and things like that, right? So they don't need the same things. But like Kevin Hart did, it doesn't hurt to take them back to where you came from so that they can
mm,
see how blessed that they are and that they can be grateful for the things that they have,
mm,
and all of that is having a good relationship with yourself. Because if you were weak, then you probably wouldn't have gotten out of there. And if you
mm,
were weak, then you probably wouldn't be able to take your kids back there, because it would be something back there that taunts or tempts you. So you have to, it goes back to that relational fitness. You have to make sure that you're fit with yourself to make sure that everything is good. So yeah.
yeah, definitely. It's so important, isn't it? It all kind of ties back, kind of comes full circle back around, kind of no matter kind of what area you kind of go into, isn't it? It all kind of ties all the way back to yourself.
All
No,
of it starts with
yeah,
you. Yeah, it
definitely.
starts and ends with you.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I was just thinking, like, as well, is there any other areas you kind of come to mind you want to mention or
So, I mean, as far as when we were talking about, relational fitness, a lot of times in my program, I talk about
yeah,
the relationship that you're having with yourself, because of course, we may be, like I said, we may be dealing with that child that was going through something or whatever. And that's the reason why you were eating the food or you're drinking the drinks or whatever it may be, because that's your comfort, you know and so just having just good, solid, just making sure that you are solid with yourself is very, very important. And it'll take you throughout it's gonna have to take you throughout the rest of your life, right? Because you're always gonna be with you. You're always gonna be with you. And if you don't like being with you, then why would you think that other people are gonna like being with you? A lot of times people say, I don't
mm,
like being by myself. Well, if you don't like being by yourself, why would anybody else want to spend time with you? Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's how it works, though, isn't it? I mean, if you're, I think like in society, there's a lot happening, and everyone's got different things that they like and enjoy, and that's okay. But I think people get kind of disconnected from themselves because they're so caught up in either like Netflix or there's nothing wrong with
yes,
Netflix, but people get too that they're
they're
avoiding
hooked
something.
on whatever
Yeah,
hooked on whatever their tool is, and they avoid themselves. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
they get sidetracked into it. So I think like it's important, isn't it, to kind of get to be comfortable in yourself, isn't it, and to kind of like love yourself because you're the one who's kind of pushing yourself through life. So
yeah.
if you're not liking yourself, then like you said, it's that synergy with other people, and people sometimes, in that place, and they, yeah, they get stuck sometimes, and people can shift and change, but I think like it's sometimes like certain life experiences, kind of shift and grow you, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Oh my
Yeah.
God, so many people had so many issues when we, started the pandemic and they started to shut things down, because it has to be by themselves, or they had to be with their mates, right? They had to be at
Mm,
home with their husband or wives, and they had to be at home with the kids. And they were just like, oh my God, they're having to deal with
mm,
these partners and children and stuff that you said that you were going to do life with. And you're
mm.
actually having to have these conversations and deal with these relationships, right?
Yeah,
And you're
yeah,
not, because what you say, you're used to dealing with work and Netflix and video games and everything else that take you away from these relationships. I
mm,
remember when you would get on the phone and you would call someone and you would stay on the phone for hours.
mm.
I remember that. Nowadays, you don't call people and ask them out, you send them a text. You send them a text. You don't even ask them to go nowhere and do nothing. You just text them
Yeah.
WYD. You don't even say, what are you
Yeah.
doing? WYD. Like anything that takes the least amount of time, you know, I think that we're going to have problems as time moves forward. We're going to have problems because we don't have, you know, any experience in relationship building or developing. You know, we have to have strong relational fitness.
Yeah. They'll have to talk to you.
Yes.
You're like, what's going on?
We got to be able to talk, Adam. Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, it's important. I
Yeah.
think communication is so important, isn't it? I mean, we can talk about that more like another time, but I think like there's that breakdown of communication, isn't that you know, from my experience as well, that has been the issue. And I think like, you know, listening, it all ties in, doesn't it? Listening, communication, yeah, like the foundations of a building almost, isn't it? You know, in a relationship.
But I
And
won't be
trust.
able to build that and trust. Yes, but I won't be able to build that relationship or even develop it because nowadays we don't even talk.
Yeah.
If I send you a message and I said, I sent you a message and I said, well, WYD, and you send a message back and say, well, I'm not doing too good. Well, I mean, was he saying that he's not doing too good because he doesn't want to talk to me? Or was he saying that he's not feeling well? Or it's too much. All you got to do is pick up the phone. You're not doing good? Like, what's wrong? Did something happen at work? Are you not feeling well? You know, you got to go through this whole little rigmarole to try to figure out what's going on when all you have to do is talk to one another. But that relationship is not there. And so people won't be able to do it. I mean, like I was saying during the pandemic, when people have to deal with their families and people have to deal with their own children. We heard about those children that were being like beaten up by their parents because they were like, I'm sick of these kids. They need to go back to school. They're your children. What do you mean? The teachers and stuff are just an assistant, you know, to help you through this life. Like, they're your kids. You're supposed to be teaching them and training them and stuff. So you don't want to be around your kids or whatever because you haven't taught them or trained them, and probably because you're not good and healthy inside either. You know, I mean, I do live by myself, but during the pandemic, I mean, my sister was, you know, part of the time my sister and baby was here. And I mean, we got along just fine. I mean, I think that we're pretty healthy. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we're pretty healthy. So we were pretty cool with each other, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's that communication, isn't it? It's so key. And, you know, like people clash or, you know, things happen. I think that's you know, life and relationships, isn't it? But you know, it's where you kind of, like you said, talk about mindfulness, be mindful, take a step back out of that box almost, and then kind of come to that even keel of understanding. Because I think you might be able to do that, but if the other person's not able to do that or isn't doing that, then it's like that seesaw almost, isn't it?
Right.
And it has to kind of come back. And I think if you can both, you know, talk about, you know, the people you're living with, you can do that, and that's fine. You know, then you communicate X, Y, Z, and then you move forward and you learn from it. It's sometimes, I mean, you know, sometimes people are in those patterns for ages, and then you can see it from an observer, but they can't see it. But you know, like people in relationship, you know, I find so interesting, and it's a really interesting, you know, topic to kind of talk about.
Yeah, I find it really interesting too, because and what really made me just so, you know, intrigued with it, of course, is because of, you know, my marriage and everything. But I see people that's been married for years. I'm talking about 25, 30 years. And here lately, it's been like a high divorce rate with people that's been married for years. I'm like, well, what happened? And it's like I just really want to like ask the question, like, what happened? What was the breakdown? I mean, you guys know each other, like in and out, or at least you should. If you've been paying attention, if you've spent 25 to 30 years with someone, you could damn near finish their sentences. Like, come on. Like, that's if you're paying attention, but if you're not, and you haven't communicated and you really don't want to be here anyway, and I just ended up staying because I had a baby, and then yeah, I
Mm,
get it. But that's interesting to me. It really is. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know anybody that gets married in order to get a divorce. I never thought I would be in this particular situation, you know.
yeah,
And for someone to be married 25, 30, 35 years and then get a divorce, I'm like, wow,
yeah,
relationships are key. They're very
yeah,
important.
yeah. No, definitely, definitely. And I think you can learn a lot from other people's relationships, can't you? And seeing what they've done, and then kind of maybe thinking, well, I'm going to do something different, or
Yeah,
like you said, it's like kind of two lanes almost. It's either like, well, that's what I'm going to do, or something that I'm not going to do. It's like
yeah.
it, and you, yeah, it's really fascinating, and
It's like being
y-
around those people, like you said, those positive people. You
mm,
take a little bit from them if it's something that serves you, and if it's not, then you just let it roll off your back. But
mm,
some of the older people used to say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. Take the part that benefits you. Yes, take the part that benefits you
mm,
and go on. But you're gonna have to have something in order to start developing that relationship, in order for people to even talk to you or to give you information.
yeah,
Me personally, I can walk up and talk to anybody. I mean,
yeah,
I just think that we're here to, and even if they have a nasty attitude, I believe that my energy would change the trajectory of their day.
mm,
I'm put in these positions to have a positive effect on people. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm human too. There have been times where, people hurt my feelings so bad, for being positive. I'm just like, oh
mm.
my God, like, you want to be negative Nancy, then you go over there. Go all the way over there. Like, we want to have fun over here,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's very important to make sure
Mm,
that that positive view, come out as much as possible, and it will suppress the ugly you and keep the negative
yeah.
you back there somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's so true though. It's so true. And I think people who are like that, that's just a reflection, isn't it, of how perhaps they're feeling about themselves and projecting. It triggers, sometimes people can be triggered by other people's, say, happiness or positivity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're like, well, oh, I'm not that way, and oh, it's you. And yeah, it's like projection, isn't it, almost? People kind of like throw up their crap onto other people.
Yeah.
It's
And you have to
yeah.
be careful too. You use two words. You said triggered and you said project. One thing, when you have to make sure that you're getting help, because it's different things that could trigger a person, that could make a person think about the things that went on in the past, or can
Mm,
make a person feel like, oh, this thing is happening again. In the military, they call it PTSD. And now
mm,
that PTSD is floating across other industries, because you notice that things happen, and when that triggers you, you think about that. So you
mm,
have to be mindful, and that's all a part again of knowing yourself. And sometimes we're not going to be able to do it alone. You have
mm,
to go and get help. It's nothing wrong. The same way somebody would call a personal trainer to help them get physically fit. The same way somebody would contact a doctor because they're not healthy in their body. The same way that someone would seek an optometrist to help them with their eye health. It's nothing wrong with someone seeking a counselor or a coach to help them with their mental health. It's nothing wrong with that. And people have looked at that as being such a bad thing for so long. Once your brain shuts down on you, and that means from a mental perspective as well as a functional perspective, then your whole body is going to shut down on you. You're not going to be able to think properly. I use the brain as the analogy as the trunk of a tree. You get everything there. Like the trunk of a tree gets all of its nutrients and its water and everything, and then it goes up and goes out to the branches, to the trees, to the leaves and things like that. That's the same way it is with your brain. You have to get help sometimes in order to separate and compartmentalize and separate the good from the bad. Everything is not always bad. And one thing that I always say is everything always works out for me. And it does. Everything will always work out for me. And the way that it says it in the Bible is that the all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. That means the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything will work out in my favor. And you have to look at it in a positive way like that. You can't always, if every time something happens, you're dragging around, you're going to always attract the negative, and you're going to always attract the hurt and the pain. Everything always works out for you. No matter how much bad you go through, you're not going to stay bad forever. It's not going to rain forever. You're going to see the rainbow, the clouds are going to move, the sun is going to shine again, and things are going to be great for you. But you have to believe that, and you have to work towards that, So.
No, definitely. I love what you said, and I totally agree. And I think it's almost like, like a bullseye, isn't it? You have to be believing that, like you said, it goes back to your, your brain and your mindset, because that's almost, they're still finding out new things about the brain and how powerful it is. And
Yes.
that's what it all kind of, it goes back to. And, like there's a lot of strength and power in, like you said, opening up about things or being honest with things, being honest with yourself, and then perhaps seeing a therapist, or perhaps, getting advice on, working out or whatever. There's so much.
I mean, because
the
answer is inside of us. The answer is inside of us. We have the answer. But a lot of people feel like it's weird for you to just walk around and be talking to yourself, right? I do it. I do it quite often. And people say, oh, it's okay, you to talk to yourself. Don't answer yourself. I answer myself too. Okay. Because the answer is inside of me. I will stand in the mirror and I will talk to myself and I will answer myself. And you can call me crazy if you want to, but I am one of the most powerful, sane people that you have ever met. So I'm telling you like that. And I speak that about myself. But what counselors are there to do is they are there to keep the conversation going, because the answer is inside of you. A lot of times you'll see something in your mind's eye that has happened, and then you won't make the connection over here until somebody says something or something happens. And you know how you have that aha moment? You're like, oh, I remember that. Yes, because you don't make the connection, you don't make the bridge, you're not able to bridge the gap. And that's what counselors and therapists do. They bridge the gap for you. They help you bridge the gap so that you can be mentally fit and you can move on with your life. There's nothing wrong with getting help. We have to. We need help. We need each other.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so true. And I think, like, like people might say, "Oh, that's crazy," but I think, like, you have to kind of talk to yourself, whether that's like externally, or internally, whatever works. And I think it's that relationship, that goes back to yourself, doesn't it? That relationship with you, and it's I think if you're putting your energy into things externally, you're going to be depleted, and you have to start, go back to you. You have to, like you said, you can't, pour out from like an empty reservoir,
Right.
It all goes back.
Absolutely. And when you were saying, think about this, Adam, when you're saying talking to yourself, yes, I talk to myself and all that. I told you that. But people think that that's crazy. It's not. You talk to yourself when you say, you know what, I'm the shit. I got it going on. Like, I'm a bad mamma jamma. Like, I can do this. Oh, I'm about to go over there and I'm about to drop 30 on this fool. Like, I'm about to do. You talk to yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So it's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. Saying positive things may be a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's nothing wrong with talking to yourself.
No, definitely. Oh, I do it as well. Like, and I think, like, you get more comfortable with it. It's like relationship with yourself, isn't it? All kind of ties back into it. No, I definitely love it. And I was just thinking, to kind of like round up as well, like where can people find you? Like, is there anything that's you're kind of doing at the minute? Where can they find you on like social media, in your classes, things like that?
Yes. So on social media, you can find me on all platforms at Fitness by Nori. That's Nori. Fitness by Nori on all social media platforms. My classes, I have classes now, Adam, since I spoke with you. I
Yeah,
don't only have classes south, I also have classes out north. I am here in the United States, but I have classes at 3711 West Camp Wisdom, 3711 West Camp Wisdom at the Team Bailey Fitness Studios on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. and on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. And then I have classes out north in the Little M Frisco Plano area on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. It's at the Dance Champion Elite Training Studios, and it's at 2765 East El Dorado Parkway in Little Am. 2765 East El Dorado Parkway in Little Am. Again, that's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. So yeah, I do hit dance fitness, and we just have fun and go hard.
nah, it's
That's what
awesome.
I do.
Love it. And like that's based in Texas, right?
Yes, in
Yeah,
Texas. Yes,
cool. And do you still do like Zoom kind of fitness for people if they're like
I do.
international? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I do online. If you need virtual online, I'm here to serve you whatever in whichever way I can. You can just contact me on Fitness by Nori.
No, awesome. Awesome. I'll definitely hopefully one day, when things blow over, try and fly out and get one of your classes one time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I would love it. I would love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. But yeah, no, I love everything that you're doing, and keep up the awesome work. And speak soon. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. Same here, Adam. I appreciate you.
No, you're welcome. You too. You take care.